I feel a change happening in my bones now. Stopping power! Every year, I get a little bit older, and the virus starts to spread. 2 world wars! Unfortunately, I love 45 ACP now. I've been practicing a bit with my USP 45, and I've gotten pretty decent at groups with the regular 230 grain ball ammo. I was tracking right around 800 feet per second out of my USP, and then around 820 feet per second out of my 1911. Recoil, very manageable out of both the USP and 1911. Now I've gotten a handle on shooting the USP, I want to work up some defensive ammo for it. There was kind of a killer deal on the Nosler projectiles pretty recently, so I grabbed a box of the 250 Nosler ASP 185 grain bullets. I wanted to go with 185 grains for defensive rounds with 45 ACP as it's a pretty low pressure round, and I don't want to really push my 1911 too hard to try to get up to expansion velocity. Nosler rates their factory 185 grain ammo at 980 feet per second, which lines up with most of the defensive ammo I've seen, which comes between like 970 up to 1,000 feet per second. This is mostly going to be run through my USP, so I can go plus P without really worrying, but I want to give my 1911 some love. Since Nosler has their load data online and it's out of a 5-inch barrel, this is going to be a pretty easy test and it'll end up being a 1-to-1 comparison when I use my 1911. And hey, bonus! There's a decent amount of testing with the 185 grain Nosler rounds. It seems like they perform well at the factory velocity of a 980 feet per second, both with good penetration and expansion. And, with 185 grain bullets versus the 230 grain ball ammo should lead to less recoil. So let's get to it. So according to the Nosler website, the only powder I have that will give me the velocities I'm looking for is going to be CFE pistol. And they have a max velocity of 1113 feet per second, which is about 100 feet per second than most of the regular factory ammo. So I think I'm going to shoot for around 1,000 feet per second out of my USP, which would maybe be about 20 feet per second faster out of my 1911 since the barrel is about a ½ inch longer. They have a range of 6.9 to 7.9 grains, but we always check other references. The Spear Gold Dots are listed on the Spear website with a range of 7.1 to 9 grains with a max velocity of 1,157 feet per second. Quite a bit higher of a charge. Hornady is more in line with the Nosler range of 6.8 to 8 grains with a max of 1,000 feet per second, but they do use an actual 1911 for their test firearm. And finally, the Hodgdon Reloading Data Center has a similar range of 7.1 to 8.1 grains. Now, Accurate Powders do list plus P loading using Accurate number 5 and number 7, which, I may try in the future with my USP only, but we're going to stick with CFE pistol for now. The Spear data was the outlier, so I'm going to stick with the Nosler suggested load data, and max load is just barely below what Hornady and Hodgdon have for their max, so I think it should be fine for the 1911. The Nosler data is a little bit more conservative, but if I can get up to the velocity I want, 1,000 feet per second, there's no reason to really push anything. The plan will be to start at 7 grains and work up in 0.3 grain increments up to 7.9 grains. So 7, 7.3, 7.6, and then 7.9 grains. Plan is to do 5 rounds of each charge out of my USP, and if it goes well, I'll later run with it with my 1911. I doubt this is really going to be an issue since the load data tends to be a bit optimistic with velocities, but if I do somehow start getting close to 1,150 feet per second with the Nosler data, I'll go ahead and stop. Nosler does make a good looking bullet. Haven't really shot a lot of 185 grain bullets out of either my USP or my 1911, so I'm not really sure if I'm going to see a significant point of impact shift at 5 to 10 yards, but I'm going to have to assume I'm going to see one beyond that. Also haven't tried a ton of hollow points out of my 1911, so I'm interested to see how well it'll function, but that's for the future. So far, my 1911 has been 100% reliable, but I've basically only shot ball ammo with it, and I do clean it pretty often. My USB has been reliable so far, but I haven't shot, I don't think, any hollow points through it, so I can't really speak on it. But based on HK pedigree, I'm assuming it's going to run great no matter what I put through it, but you need to put a bunch of rounds through it to actually trust it. So we have our cases. I still have half a bag of brand new Starline brass, so I'm going to run through that. I have a bunch of once fired 45 ACP, but I want to finish off this bag and do like a big batch cleaning of everything. And I normally air dry cases, and it's still a little too cold for that for me. Next year I need to remember to do a big batch of cleaning right in the early fall. I'll be like a squirrel hoarding brass for winter. It's new brass, but first step's always going to be resizing. So screw in the resizing die until it touches, lock it in, and we get to resizing. little bit more resistance than I would have expected out of brand new cases, but still not too bad. The only reason I'm using the hand press right now is because I haven't screwed my main press back into the desk, and I'm just being lazy, but I'm regretting it now. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. I think once I get to case mouth expansion, I'm gonna go ahead and set my old press back up. It's dumb to think this, but I love new brass. It's so pretty. 7, 7.3, 7.6, 7.9. Okay. All right, so got the press set back up. Ready to actually get started on this. So first, check the directions. Right, this is the nickel method. So, nickel. All right, lock it in. Well, that's gone forever. This is not going well. Just checking around the edges what it looks like before expanding. 0.4660. Okay, definitely expanded there. We are at 0.470. And my battery is dying on my... I just want to make some 45 ACP. Just want to make some bullets. It's all right. We have batteries. Don't let this ruin your day. Actually, before I go get those batteries, let's just make sure. I think it could go in just a tiny bit more. Let me try that. Yeah, that looks good. All right, let's do the rest of them. We're going to use some Federal large pistol primers. I also noticed as I was going to get the primers, it is now a beautiful sunny day, so I'm actually going to go out on a hike. And I'll be right back, though. Well, not right back. All right, I'm back. A lot more windy than I thought it was going to be, but still nice outside. I got back and I realized, found out, I don't have any more LR44 batteries left. So instead of getting mad, walked over to the Walgreens and picked up some more batteries. I'm gonna buy a 20-pack of them on Amazon or something like that. But either way, I'm not gonna get dissuaded from finishing this today. So next step is priming. All right, so we need 20 primers. Ready for powder now. So I know this weighs 199.3. Yes, 199.3. Awesome. All right. So yeah, 7, 7.3, 7.6, and then 7.9 grains. And that's from the Nosler load data. Let's get to it. Way too much. I should have looked up how much a full scoop of this was going to be in the first place. All right, so bullet seating. Here we go. Oh, God, this stupid look. The ones that come with the, like, colored Lee, whatever those are called, the directions on them are very specific to just that, whatever. Okay, so screw it down until it touches and then back it off one turn is what we're going to do. I think I'm going to buy a different 45 ACP set. I'm not liking this one that much. All right, lock it in. Put this down until it touches. That's not right. Let's try this again. Actually, before I do anything, I'm going to make sure that that's got a... Okay, it does have a seating stem in there. I might as well use one of my micrometer seating stems. Okay, that's starting to seat now. But first, I need to double check what the hell the overall length is supposed to be. One moment. All right, so 1.200. So we are at 1.307. So why don't we go down 100? 1.201. We are going to call that good. Let's do one more and see if it gives us the same results. Looking good. 1.203. 1.1999. All right. I think we got it exactly where we want it. 1.201. All right. I think we are good to just roll through this. Just got to remember to get the same pressure on each press. 1.199. Now comes the crimping step, which was just nonsense for me last time. So I'm going to just not going to worry about it. As long as it passes the plunk test, that's where we're going to go. So I think we measured this earlier, but just double checking now that the bullet's in there. We are at 0.473. Okay. So we need to go down to what we were before. And when I did this, it was, yeah, it expanded it by 4. So we got to get it around 0.69. All right. So everything's seated. Look through the directions again. I remembered why I didn't like this set. Screw in the die until it stops turning, and then 1/8 of a turn. I'm either going to buy a Lee factory crimp die, or I'm going to just buy a whole new set of dies, because I don't like this at all. But here we go. You got ACP right here. It should be in between here, so that's about 1/8 of a turn, I guess. Didn't feel anything. Let's see if this has changed. Not changed. Don't see any mark. Let's go a 4th. Didn't feel anything. I'm getting a new set of dies. This sucks. Yeah, I can't screw that in anymore. So, another 1/8 of a turn. Oh, that felt like maybe too much. Definitely felt like something. All right, so I'm seeing a little bit of a mark on the brass now. So I think I went a little too far. There's definitely a mark on the brass now, but I can't tell if it's doing anything. This is not a good way of doing this, and it doesn't look like it's gotten any. Let me get my gun and do a plunk test on one that is still flared versus one I've done a crimp on. So this one still flared. Looks okay to me. That's unfortunate. Let's try one that I did the crimp on. Maybe it sounds exactly the same. Let's get some factory ammo. All right, so factory ammo, basically just below flush. My 2 crimped bullets, just below flush. Uncrimped, just below flush. Rotates easily. So I don't know if it really matters then. Maybe these bullets were fairly difficult to put in, so maybe I didn't really even expand it that much. Okay, I think what I'm going to do is, because freaking all of these passed the plunk test on my USB, even the ones where I've done nothing on them, I'm just going to screw this in until I see a mark on the case where it is clearly like moving it. So we're just going to go with that, I guess. And I figure if they pass the plunk test and they all spin freely, that means it's not, at least not engaging the rifling in the USP, so it should be good. But yeah, I'm done with this. I'm done with this pistol die. Well, I don't feel great about this, but they all seem okay. I guess they'll head to the range, and I'm going to make sure I wear gloves, just in case. But hey, at least the USP should be able to handle higher pressures if something goes wrong. So, all right, so this is bothering me. I'm gonna make a dummy round. Let's seat the bullet. 1.20. All right. Let me pull this bullet and see if it's actually squeezing in a little bit, because I'm feeling like a little bit of resistance. So looking at this, there is just a hint of an indentation in the brass. So it is pushing it in. There's a mark on the brass. I think we're good. Yeah, let's head to the range. So after an incredibly frustrating reloading session, great success. Using my USP starting at a load of 7 grains, that gave us an average velocity of 841 feet per second with a standard deviation of 5.3. Very consistent, but I was a little worried with the low velocity. The cases were pretty sooty at this low charge, but the velocities quickly started to ramp up. At 7.9 grains, which was the most conservative max load across several reloading data sources, I got an average velocity of 984 feet per second and a standard deviation of 13. Very consistent, the cases weren't too sooty, and best of all, I matched the factory ammo velocity out of a shorter barrel. Again, from what I've seen online, it looks like the factory ammo does just fine at this velocity, so there's not really much reason to push it much farther, even though a few of the other reloading sources do push the charge a bit higher. I have a load to test hollow points out of my 1911 now, and I couldn't be more pleased with how this went. I think this is going to be the perfect defensive load for my 1911, but for my USP, we can always push a little harder. Here's what I want to do. So first I want to load up a bunch of rounds of the 7.9 grain load CFE pistol out of my 1911. If that goes well, I'll load up another 21 or 50 or some number divisible by 7 and just have those are going to be my 1911 defensive loads, and those are just, sit on the shelf ready to go. But I don't really need to make a whole video about that. I think I'll throw something in there at the end just saying, hey, was my 1911 reliable with the hollow points? Now, for my HK, I want to try one more powder. Looking at the available load data out there, I think accurate number 7 is going to be my best powder for really pushing 45 ACP in the plus P territory. Anything plus P is going to be exclusively shot through my USP. Nosler doesn't offer any of that type of load data, but Hodgdon and Sierra offer both those with max velocities of 1150 and 1200 feet per second respectively. Again, like with most load data, this is probably a little optimistic as far as velocity goes, but I'm here for testing it out. It was probably a mistake to look at the Sierra data, though. Those 200 grain V-crown bullets are just calling to me at 1,100 feet per second. I mean, we'll see what velocity I end up getting out of the 185 grain Nosler bullets. And, I'll see if those velocities are even in the ballpark of what the reloading data is suggesting. If I'm getting similar velocities to the Sierra load data, I don't see how I'm going to be able to resist not getting a box of those V-crowns. If I could get a 200 grain bullet going around 1,000 feet per second out of my USP, that would be just perfect. Oh, and I had to wait a couple days before I could hit the range, as there was getting some maintenance done. And in the meantime, I ordered some Hornady 45 ACP dies. I got the ones with the crazy taper crimp seating die. For some reason, they were cheaper. I mean, we'll see if I end up regretting that down the road, and I just end up wanting to buy a Lee factory crimp die. But of course, like always, I forgot to buy a shell holder. So that'll be for another day. Anyway, thanks for watching.